So, Christopher Nolan, for the possible next Bond movie director, being the director for the next Bond movie, possibly. Well, you know what? I love Christopher Nolan. I thought he was great in The Village. The when it's opening in and he's talking to at the burial of his son. That was very. Wait a minute. What's that? That's not Christopher Nolan. Well, that wasn't him. Oh wow. Well, sorry. Yep, my mistake. Could have swore that was him. Sure looked like him. Anyway, Christopher Nolan, possibly being the director for the next Bond movie. Now we know Christopher Nolan as a director. He directed the Dark Knight, Batman movies series, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Inception. That's one of his better known. And then Oppenheimer, which is just out, doing really good at the theaters, as well. Lots of people have been in the theaters watching this one. And Tenet. So we're going to talk a little bit about Tenet today as well. But this has been talked about in the past, about Christopher Nolan maybe being a director for the next Bond movie. And there's been a couple of videos already put out there in the Bond community. I kind of wanted to put my opinion out there on this as well, because it has further come up again in a recent interview. Let's take a look at some of the parts of that interview, and then let's discuss it. Okay, so here's the first little bit. We're going to go piece by piece. All right, here we go.
$20 says you're going to direct the next Bond movie.
$20. I wouldn't want to define my whole career on whether or not I get to take $20 from Josh. So
first, his wit during this part. It's like, oh, I don't want to base my whole career on taking $20 from Josh. And just his wit about him, it's really good. I think it would play well towards the wit of James Bond as well. Now look at this. To me, this is very interesting. Take a look at this.
I'd like to be able to keep a clear head if I'm ever asked to direct a Bond film.
I see. That would influence. I don't want to get.
I lose that.
All right. Did you notice how he looked? He looked right at the camera. A glance. He just glanced at the camera. And he says, if I was ever asked to do this, and then he glances at the camera. To me, this seems like this might have been more than just an interview that he was giving at the moment right there. Maybe we could even take this as him giving a little bit of an audition to be the director, reaching out to the producers and just kind of showing where he would be coming from already. And all right, so let's take a look a little bit more in the interview.
I love those movies. The influence of those movies on my filmography is embarrassingly apparent, and so there's no attempt to shy away from that. I love the films.
All right, so we can see he loves the James Bond movies. He loves these movies. He takes from them for his own movies. He says his own movies are very heavily influenced by Bond movies. And we will talk about that a little bit. But if you are heavily influenced by something, that means you love it. You respect it, and you would never want to damage it. So, because especially you're not going to damage it or tarnish it because you drew from it. You used it to fulfill your own creations that you have. So this is an important frame of mind for us to remember that this is the kind of frame of mind that he would have if he were to direct a Bond movie. All right, what else does he say?
At the same time, when you take on a character like that or work like that, you're working within a particular set of constraints.
Yes.
And so, you have to have the right attitude towards that. It has to be the right moment in your creative life where you can express what you want to express and really burrow into something within the appropriate constraints.
So, yes, when he says, when you take a character like that, you're working within constraints. So, again, he's showing he respects this character. He does not want to deviate from who Bond is or what others may expect of him. And he would operate within those constraints. Yeah, be creative, explore things like that, but within the constraints. I feel that's very important as well, especially with Bond and the character that he is. And then he says, oh, yeah, look at this here next.
Because you would never want to take on something like that and sort of do it wrong. It's the kind of responsibility I felt very much taking on Batman.
So, yeah, notice it's a responsibility that you take on and you don't want to get it wrong. And it's a responsibility like he felt when he was taking on Batman. And we saw how he handled Batman. He did a pretty good job with it, right? Yeah. Now, here's what else he says. Let's take a look at this.
You wouldn't want to take on a film not fully committed to what you can bring to the table creatively. So as a writer, casting, everything, that's the sort of full package.
So yes, he would want to be fully committed. He'd be involved with everything. So if he were to do this, and remember, he's in his mind, maybe he's speaking to the producers, maybe he's speaking to the camera, not just an interview here, but this could be a bit of an audition. He is saying, I would want to be fully involved. He doesn't want any surprises thrown at him. He doesn't want to be told what he would have to do. He wants to be the builder. And if he's going to do that, he wants to work within those constraints. If he's going to be the builder, he wants to use the existing blueprints. That's very important. So after this interview, for a number of reasons, this actually gets my hopes up about Christopher Nolan, the possibility of him directing the next Bond movie. So mainly, for me, it's it's his respect for the Bond movies and the character of Bond. So much so, it has influenced his own art. And you can kind of see it. Maybe in Batman, the gadgets of Batman. Remember in the Nolan movies, they have a very much more kind of human quality to them. Something like somebody would actually use out in the field, like an agent would use. So they had more of a real feel to them. The gadgets did. And now we're going to talk about Tenet, the movie. Tenet, it looks like a Bond film in the poster. Right? You look at the poster, this looks like a Bond movie. In fact, it starts like a Bond movie. It starts in the middle of a mission. There's an opener to it, and so here you are in this mission. You don't know why, you don't know where, when, but you're immediately in a mission. That's how the movie starts out. Has very undercover vibes to it. This one man, he's working for this organization. And I must say this. Now, this is kind of interesting. Tenet already has the opening for the next Bond movie. I'm almost not kidding about this. Tenet could have the opening for the next Bond movie. So the main character, he wakes up in a medical type facility, and he wakes up from what he is told. He's been in a medically induced coma, and he has someone of authority, kind of like an M type of authority character, saying, "Welcome to the afterlife." And then, in fact, he even says something like, "Oh, you don't even work for us anymore because you're dead." So they're going to use that. So you have this secret agent, and kind of waking up from this induced coma. He thought he was dead. Bond, yeah, Bond. We all think he's dead. Could wake up from some induced coma. Okay, and then in Tenet, also, He's got this secret agent vibe to him. And even at some point, I noticed, this didn't go unnoticed to me, he's wearing a gray three-piece suit, a very Sean Connery like three-piece suit. And even during a dinner scene, a woman says to him, "Oh, you have the suit, you have the shoes, you have the watch, but you're out of your depth." So it was almost like a reference to a Bond movie. Yeah, you got the suit, you got the shoes, you got the watch, you look the part, but she's saying, tell him, "Oh yeah, you're out of your depth." In watching Tenet, for me, it felt like it was kind of an homage to Bond. Really. So I can see the Bond influence in his movies. Uh, Inception was also kind of a mix between Bond and Mission Impossible influence on that as well. So the influence, that's a big plus for me in his work. Another big plus for me, I've got to be honest about this, is his age. He was born in 1970. 1970 in the UK. So that's a plus right there too. But that means he's my age. He's literally 1 year older than me. And age matters to me when it comes to the perspective of James Bond. I tend to see that younger audiences, that they don't see Bond the same way that I do. In fact, some of the younger audiences, they seem like they're okay. They're okay with changing the character of Bond. They kind of hold less to tradition and decorum and etiquette as we've known it. For instance, sure, Bond, he's an assassin. He'll kill someone when needed, but his mentality is, well, they've got to be taken out. But there's no sense in being rude while I'm doing it. So he's going to do it with manners, with etiquette, with decorum. Well, kind of a younger generation, they want the rudeness too. They don't need that decorum part of it, which kind of gets, that's when you start saying, oh, that's angry Bond. When Bond does something without the decorum, he's rude about it. Now you've got angry Bond. Whereas normally the normal Bond, when he's doing something, he's not going to be rude about it. He's got his etiquette. He's going to be a gentleman about it. Also, my generation, people who are older, they say, yeah, that was completely wrong to kill Bond. That's the unspeakable. You can't do that. Yet a younger generation, they're kind of okay with it. Even if they didn't like it, they'll say, I didn't like it, but it worked for the story. They're still okay that it happened. There's many in my generation, they refuse to watch the last Bond movie, No Time to Die. They refuse to watch it because of the inexcusable happening. That's just a couple of examples of where like there's the generational viewpoint can come into play. So Nolan being of my generation, to me, that speaks volumes about the kind of Bond movie that he would do. Now, there's this other thought that Nolan doing a Bond movie would make him Nolan the main character and not the new Bond. That having the Nolan name, it would distract too much from Bond himself, the new Bond, the new actor. It would all be about Christopher Nolan. Well, I'm not sure if that would really be the case. If you remember how Tenet was supposed to save the theaters, remember that the theaters had been shut down for quite a while. And personally, I work at a theater part-time, and I like to get the perks, of course, of working at a theater. And I can tell you right now that just the fact that it was a Christopher Nolan movie and people saying, yep, it's Christopher Nolan, it's going to get people back in the theaters, it's going to save the industry. It did not. It did not. Now, the movie itself has a 76% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 69% in reviews. And I remember, even though it was a big deal, hey, this is Christopher Nolan, the theaters, they stayed empty. People, they were not ready yet. They still felt it was too risky to be out there in the theaters because of COVID. So the fact that it was a Nolan film was not strong enough. That was not enough to get people in there. But it did get people talking about it. It did raise awareness of this movie. And it did get a lot of hype that maybe it normally would not have gotten. But it still didn't overshadow anything. Just having Nolan's name on it, it didn't overshadow anything else about it. So I think that could happen and maybe needs to happen with the next Bond film. It's going to need all the hype that it can get. And we need more movies that are going to draw people back into the theater, just like Mission Impossible. And Oppenheimer, that's drawn people back into theaters a lot now as well. So I think having the hype would be good. I don't think it's going to overshadow anything else about it. In fact, it would just be another tier, another level that can be added to the excitement of it. And I think that having someone like Nolan speaking very publicly about the Bond movie and how he's going to stick with the tradition and the true character of Bond, I'm operating within those parameters. I think if he's going to be doing that, and that's the kind of director he's going to be, then personally, I love the idea. But you know what? It's still early. And I'm sure there's plenty of other pros and cons that I have not thought of yet. So please share yours with me in the comments. Let me know your pros. Let me know your cons. I know there's a couple of videos out there already with some viewpoints on it. And the reason why this is worth talking about is because it's worth talking about. It's exciting, and it's going to be really, really fun to actually just start to see things start coming together. So hopefully we're there. Hopefully we're really close to where, hey, if there's enough people starting to talk about a director, an actor, maybe our producers for the owners of Bond will actually say, you know what? Yeah, I think it's time. Let's get to work. All right, let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.
The rumor lately is one of your previous cohorts, Aaron Taylor Johnson. We'll see if he ends up being the man.
Well, he's a great actor.